All right, guys, we're live and the coffee is hot. I want to welcome everyone back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos, and we are broadcasting live from sunny Phoenix, Arizona. This is my true crime journey where I take you guys along for the ride. Today, we're diving into Abby and Libby's case, also known as the Delphi murders. Poll question of the day: do you believe the Klines were directly involved in the Delphi murders? 64% of you believe without a doubt. 27% say it goes poof when there's no proof. 8% of you say sleuth. He goes on and on. He won't shut up about the Delphi case. Nobody selected poor guy. Couple of things I do want to bring up, but I'm a little interested to see what you guys have to say first. So we'll spend some time in the chat. Welcome in, Brian. Not digging the hats there. Neil, welcome in. Miss Dog Lover. Shout out to London. Neil. What's up, mate? Shout out to all my people on the other side of the rock. Tony N. I still feel like there almost has to be a connection, but of course there may not be. I still feel like more stuff will break one day in regards to Delphi. Well, that's my new saying when it comes to law enforcement. It goes poof when there's no proof. So for them, everything they do it with the trial in mind. So if there's no proof, then it goes poof because they can't use it. It means nothing to them. When they clock out, they're just like us. They speculate and they're like, man, I really wish, I'm pretty sure he had something to do with it. Nothing I can do with it, though. And that's why I pulled David Kalenberger's folder, his file that I have. Him and B. Phillips. So David Kalenberger is a case out of 2016 that was headed up by Jerry Holman. So he's the lead investigator on David Kalenberger's case, just like he was with the Delphi murders. Interestingly, though, when it comes to the David Kalenberger case, Holman knows who killed him. He has an eyewitness who is B. Phillips, who has come forward and officially stated that he was there when David was wrapped in a tarp and tied up with tow straps. He even told him that, hey, I helped pick up the dead body and put it in the trunk. This is part of his official statement. And when I say his statement, I'm talking about B. Phillips, the same bomb threat B. Phillips that had court in Delphi at 8 a.m. on the 13th, but it was canceled. The same B. Phillips that was charged with calling in a bomb threat to the Packers plant, where they ended up searching specifically for items relating to the Delphi case. Not only to later on the 22nd, just I think shortly before the presser, the first Delphi case presser, somebody called in another bomb threat at the Packers plant. How interesting. So when people say, well, why didn't law enforcement do this? Why didn't law enforcement, if they thought the Klines were involved, why didn't they arrest them? Well, I'm giving you a perfect example here with the David Kalenberger case. When they have all the pieces, they know who the players are, they know the motive, they know everything. They just don't know where the body is. They know who killed him. They know that he's dead. They have an eyewitness. who confessed to moving the body to help conceal the murder. So you have B. Phillips, who was implicating himself in the crime, to Holman, like begging, like, "Hey, I know what happened." They even dug up somebody's garage. They dug it up because rumor was that he was buried there. And I think shortly after those rumors started to kind of circulate, there was a large chunk of cement, I think, placed down. So they tore that up, dug down there. There was nothing. So I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, well, if they thought he was involved, they would charge him." Or police don't look at people without telling the public. Bullshit. Just look at the David Kalenberger case. That's why I still believe that it's possible that law enforcement were looking at Richard Allen. I'm not saying that they were. I'm just saying it is possible without us even knowing it. Let's go to a. Oh, thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Thank you. Jill and Neil. What's up, J Ray? I feel that Keegan will eventually be the one to rat himself out one day. He did. Keegan Kline has officially made a statement saying that he was involved in the Delphi murders. A lot of people keep forgetting that. Isn't that strange? We hear about confessions from Reese's Pieces, Ron Logan, but the only person to officially confess, to sit down with the entire investigative team, taken from his cell into ISP custody, taken to the crime scene. They drove him to the cemetery, to Delphi. Kagan told the investigative team, "I sat right here in a vehicle. My father met with a friend. He went down to the crime scene, was gone for a couple of hours. When he returned, he was covered in mud and blood and said, 'We just had a good time.'" It's like talking to a brick wall. But if there's no proof, guess what? Guess what happens, guys, when there's no proof? Yep, you got it. But that has nothing to do with us. We're web sleuths, armchair detectives. We don't have to deal with the bureaucratic red tape. We keep looking until we're done looking. What's up, Chopper? What are you up to, my friend?
Get to the chopper!
What's going on, Miss Dog Lover? H. Nixon, welcome. I believe they were involved on the backside, so not directly. J. Ray, well, Sleuth, you've heard that call with Scott Washington, friend of TK, right? Yes, I have. Brian says that story has way too many details for it to just be made up. Where is KK's father now? Is he alive? Yeah. He was in Florida shortly, but I think he may be back in Peru, living with his mother. What's up, Poos? Absolutely. Steve R., if TK was at the crime scene with Rick and returned to the cemetery, what are plausible explanations that Klines didn't give Rick a ride to his car? What do you mean? I mean, there could be a million reasons why they didn't give him a ride. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation. I mean, it just doesn't play out. This isn't a video game. We're not like non-playable characters. Things are very random. Um, People are very unpredictable. I mean, you have no clue. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the question. Maybe they had an argument. Maybe somebody panicked. Maybe they didn't. Maybe he didn't want him in his car covered in mud and blood. What's up, Anna? What if there is some truth in KK's story, but a lot of lies? For instance, what if TK was not there, but a friend of KK was with him? I've sat and pondered about that very question, Anna. I know that at some point, Kagan Klein did feel betrayed by his father for whatever reason. I think Tony, once people started pointing the finger at Tony Klein, because there really was no proof that he was involved. Um, there was nothing to tie him to the case. So he began to separate from Kagan Klein. And I think that Kagan may have felt like he was betrayed there for a minute and may have started trying to drag his father into it as some kind of an attack. But that just doesn't seem realistic. I mean, we all thought Kagan Klein was involved. We all thought that Anthony Schatz was involved. Yes, point at him involved. Law enforcement believes he's involved. Tried to find a connection between Richard Allen and the Klines. And Klein, that's great. Tell he was involved. So it's not like, hey, I'm pulling some kind of weird theory. This is the very theory that the investigative team has been trying to track down. But with no proof, it goes poof. Just like with the Kalenberger case. They know who did it. They know the players. They know he's dead. They even have one of the individuals that was involved in moving and disposing of the body, confessing officially, making an official statement. Yet he did not get arrested. There have been no arrests. Why? Because if there's no proof, that shit goes what? What's up, Vegas? KK has said lots of things, and only thing true about him is he lies, lies, and lies. The cops looked at him and found nothing, and Holman asked Richard Allen if he had help, and he said he did it alone. So now Richard Allen is telling the truth, and Keegan Klein is the liar. I guess nobody ever heard the story of the boy that cried wolf. You guys ever heard that story? He thought it was funny. Hey, there's a wolf. Everybody panic. They'd come running. They would try to go protect the sheep. They'd get out there. They'd um, interrupted their dinner, whatever they were doing to come save the sheep and the little boy, right? No wolf. He does it again. Hey, there's a wolf out here. Help, help, help. So they come running. Again, he's fooled them. He's a little prankster. Then the third time, there really is a wolf. And he comes and he kills out all the sheep and the little boy. And he was screaming and crying, wolf, wolf, wolf. But nobody came because he's a liar. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. What's up, Poos? Heard what from, Jay? We don't know what you're referring to, right? In the comments. Need some context. How many seats in that Jeep? I think 2 in the front and a bench in the back. No one would want blood in their car because that would implicate them right away. They didn't give him a lift because he was muddy and bloody. Yeah, and for all we know, look, if the Klines are involved, they took great steps. They went through great lengths to have an alibi. They made sure people were using their phones. Most likely with somebody like the Trexler. Remember, Kagan Klein's phone connected to his Wi-Fi. So really, in order to get away with a murder, all you need is somebody to have your phone. Here, take my phone. I'll give you $100 if you just use my phone. And whoever was using Keegan Klein's phone was looking at porn, you know. So it just appeared like Keegan Klein was. That's what he normally does. He's a creep. So that's all it takes to get away with murder. So if they went through great lengths, maybe before getting into the vehicle, he took all his clothes off and changed his clothing. Said, "Hey, you can't get in here. It's not my fault. You didn't fucking plan this out very well." Reese's story could be said to have too many details to be made up. While I believe Reese is relating what he was told, someone's made up elaborate stories. True. And remember, Anna, he's come in contact with Kagan Klein. So if Kagan told him any truths, they could be lying strategically. You know what I mean? Bunch of strategic liars. Serene Winters, it's a good possibility that KK is a pathological liar who enjoyed playing games with law enforcement. That's true, but why? You've already been convicted and facing 45 years. They can't negotiate with those charges. Those that justice belongs to those victims, not Abby and Libby. The only negotiating they can do is with charges for the Delphi murders. So why would he go out of his way to snitch on everybody when they're not even looking at him for the Delphi murders? He's literally opening himself up to another charge. Doesn't make any sense. And everybody's looking for a patsy. If law enforcement wanted a patsy, wouldn't they have just used the Klines? Like, hey, we have a confession right here. We'll go arrest, we'll charge Kagan and his father. We have an eyewitness who was at the crime scene telling us that you were there. So you think if they wanted a patsy, they had one gift wrapped for him right there. TK was bloody and in the car. I'm 100% Rick did it. And if the Klines did leave him in the cemetery, why he not rat them out? Seems they left him out to dry if they just drove away. Left him out. Maybe he offered to walk. He's like, I'll just walk. There could be a million reasons why. And you don't know that if, and remember, this is a big if. This is hypothetical. There's no proof. There's nothing backing this up. It's just my opinion. If the Klines are involved, there's no saying they got into that vehicle muddy and bloody. Like I'm saying, they could have changed clothes. I feel like if you're planning a murder, that's one of the easiest ideas to come up with. Okay, we're about to commit a murder. What about all the mud and blood? Well, we'll bring a change of clothes and we'll throw all we'll throw all the muddy and bloody clothing into a bag. And then we'll burn it when we get home. Richard Allen's trying to get in the vehicle. They're like, no, you can't get in. He needs to go to his vehicle to get his change of clothes, which I think he had. I think he had a change of clothes just like. Whoops, sorry about that. What's up, Charlotte? Shout out to the UK. Charlotte says, if KK has admitted to it, why is Rick? Because there's no proof, Charlotte. Just like with the Kalenberger case and B. Phillips. B. Phillips is a long-time criminal, multiple felonies, drug abuser. He says that they were the biggest meth dealers in Delphi around the time of the murders. Yet he didn't get charged, sat down with law enforcement and confessed. I saw the dead body. It was wrapped up, strapped up um, in tow straps, and I helped put it in a trunk. And I can point at all the people that were there and all the people that most likely killed him. Yet he didn't get arrested. Nobody got arrested. All the people that he fingered did not get arrested. And Holman hasn't released any of that information to the public. Because you can't take somebody like B. Phillips and then that be all you have. Remember, everything is with the trial in mind. Okay, so with the trial in mind, we go ahead and we put B. Phillips on the stand. B. Phillips says, that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy killed him, and I helped dump the body. The defense attorney is going to cross examine him and say, oh, B. Phillips, let me ask you about this, this, this. And they're going to bring up all his drug history, all the violent crime, and him basically admitting to being a piece of shit. And why is it that he's not the killer? You know, maybe he's just lying about these other people. That's it. Nobody's going to buy. If that's all you have nothing. The word of a felon. And I think the same thing kind of goes with Kagan Kline, a known liar, right? He's confessing, but without proving it. And remember, the reason that they were searching the Wabash River was because of Kagan Kline and his confessions and what he said about a phone and a knife. What's up, Nixon? Took it as they would talk about their connection, not talk to each other or Jerry. What's up, Christine? What's up, Sam? I think during one of his confessions, I don't know if it was Holman, he said, I did it and nobody helped me. What's up, She Warrior? Sees through. How you doing? They may be involved, but not at the scene. Why not at the scene? Kagan Kline confessed to being at the scene. If they're involved, why would he confess to that and not be the truth? Why is Rick in prison if KK admitted to it? Why keep the clothes? Surely you would thought it all away or thought through it. Yeah, obviously. And this definitely feels like a pre-planned murder. Starting point to sort out KK's tale is they probably never used a red Jeep. Yeah, you might be right. So in order to conceal evidence, you know, they insert other lies to misdirect. So yeah, I think when you were talking earlier about half truths, Anna, I think you're right. So Anna says a starting point to sort out KK's tale is they probably never used a red Jeep. That vehicle would have been noticed and remembered. If they were there, what did they drive? There were rumors that they may have been in the PT Cruiser. Miss Dog Lover, this channel truly is global. We are everywhere. The sleuth crew is everywhere. Analyst set. Lying strategically. That's what I have been suggesting. Yep, I agree. Vegas. Richard Allen is the only one arrested. There is no evidence tying Richard Allen and KK together. That is a true statement. That is a true statement. And when there's no proof, it goes poof. But that rule doesn't apply to us, Vegas. You should put a yet, right? There is no evidence tying Richard Allen and KK together yet. The cops were thinking KK and 2 were involved in the Delphi murders, though. Absolutely. I mean, they spent over $1 million following up on Keegan Kline's information. KK said in the interrogation that police had offered to make the CSAM charges go away if he could solve the Delphi case. He had good reason to try to lie his way to success. Maybe, but I'm sure he soon realized they can't do that. He had an attorney, but yeah, I mean that's possible. Doesn't make sense to me, but what's up, Samantha? Do you think Richard Allen could have had his jacket reversed, and that's what caused the girls to say black jacket? Also, work boots increase a person's height by several inches. Yeah, I'm not really sure what kind of shoes he had on. I'm assuming some type of boot. Um, but he had a head covering on, a hoodie on, and then most likely the hood from his jacket over his his hat. That's going to give you a couple of inches. Not to mention just the recollection. If he's a larger man with broad shoulders, they may just remember him as a bigger guy. They're not gonna. It's not like they took out a tape measure. Or like, oh my God, he's 5'10", or they didn't go stand next to him and said, oh look, this guy, I come up to his shoulder. No, they're doing their best to kind of remember, but when we look back and try to recall things, really, it's like somebody dropping, a bucket of water on top of a painting, and all of it just kind of starts to bleed together. Like there's really nothing there that you can rely on unless you have a photographic or photogenic memory, especially when you're not supposed to remember. But Richard Allen, for whatever reason, did remember. There's no reason for him to have all those details about those girls. If he's just out for a walk and focusing on his stock ticker, I mean, he shouldn't even have remembered how many there were, two or three. I don't know. Yeah, there were some girls there, but that's it. I know there was a group of girls. I think it might have been three or four girls. That's it, right? Because he's just out there for a stroll. He's not paying any attention to these little girls, and he's focused on his stock ticker. There's no reason for him to have these detailed notes about these girls that he ran into. One had long hair, one was taller than the other. I believe they were babysitting. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? It should have been more like Betsy Blair. Like, it looked like he was waiting for somebody, a younger guy, maybe curly hair, and that's I don't know. I think that's how I remember it. Not, oh, he was 5'6", definitely curly hair, blue eyes. He had a dimple. He had dimples. He was missing one of his canines. He had a piercing on the top of his ear and a gray patch of hair on the top of his head with a receding hairline and a small tattoo behind his ear of a four-leaf clover. Why would Ricky keep the clothes and jacket? I don't think that was the jacket. I think he pulled a Brian Koberger. Remember, Brian Koberger left the knife sheath. Now, if anybody pointed at Koberger and said, I'm pretty sure he had a K-bar knife, well, he replaced it. If cops came looking, they would say, oh, well, he has his sheath. So it can't be his. He has his. Everything looks good here. If his sheath was the sheath at the crime scene, then it wouldn't be here right now in his possession because we have the sheath in our possession. So that's his logic. I'll just repurchase the K-bar knife. So when they come looking, hey, here's the K-bar knife. Nowhere near the crime scene. I think it's possible Richard Allen did the same thing. Gets rid of the jacket, gets his hand on a replacement jacket. That way, when they come looking, he can say, well, here's the jacket I was wearing, right? If I'm the murderer, wouldn't it be covered in mud and blood? Ducketology, FBI saying the Klines weren't involved early on is baffling. Interesting, too. especially when they mention tentacles and this involving money and online CSAM. That shit has corrupt FBI agents written all over it. That online dark web stuff. What they do is they set up these traps. The FBI and the CIA, they set up these traps on the dark web, and they let a lot of these criminals just kind of roam free while they track them down, trying to find the big fish. But they're letting all this crime, all this CSAM, this stalking, cyber stalking, people putting hits out on people, and they don't do anything about it. Because if they did, it would expose. I think it's called a honey pot or a honey trap or something. You guys might be able to having a brain fart. Something honey. Basically, they're using it as to attract all of these predators, and they're taking information about their movements and how they do business. And I have a feeling that Keegan Kline and whatever was going on with Delphi may have tied into something like that. Possibly. But I digress. False informing if the river search came up empty. Well, I don't think he gave them specifics. I think it was secondhand information. They were like, okay, well, what happened, with the phone? Because they're looking for 2 phones. That's that much I do know. There's 2 phones relating to Keegan Kline that they're looking for. And I think he may have said, well, I heard they threw it in the river, a phone, and I heard they threw a phone and a knife in the river. So he may not have given them specifics because right at that time, they were actually doing 2 searches. One search, they told the public it was related to somebody who had drowned or another missing person, but it was going on simultaneously, I think in Lafayette and then in Peru. I mean, think about it. They say the Anthony Shots account was talking with Libby the day before, the night of, and the morning before their murder. They know that. They've come out and told the public that. That is a fact. That's not me speculating. That's not me saying, what if? That is a full blown fact. Who created the Anthony Shots account? It was Keegan Kline. Right? Keegan Kline, whoever was operating the Anthony Shots account, was telling everybody that they were supposed to meet Libby there that day. Now, all you would have to do is find some small connection between the Klines and Richard Allen, and then the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. Richard Allen worked at the CVS less than a mile away from the Kline home. It's the closest resource for them if they're looking for convenience or filling their prescription. They would go there. Richard Allen worked at that CVS for a while and didn't move until he didn't switch from that CVS. He didn't transfer from Peru to the Delphi CVS until just before the Delphi murders. And it was right at that time when they began targeting Libby. And when I say targeting, I'm referring to this here. Just bear with me, guys. I'm pulling up my screen. Need the Jeopardy music. Do 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 do. Okay, so you see this photo here? We've talked about it briefly. So this is the sleepover, or a sleepover. I don't know about the sleepover, but a sleepover. Okay, so Keegan Kline, after the murders, about, I want to say 3 months after, maybe less, moves to Las Vegas. So they don't charge him. They searched his home, they found all the CSAM, and they didn't charge him. Right? They thought the FBI was watching him. There's nothing they can do about it. Jurisdiction, right? Juris my diction and all that. Well, Keegan Kline comes back, and when he comes back, he moves in with this girl, Allie Conklin. Now, Keegan Kline is friends with her family. That's how he got to Abby and Libby. Introduced to Anthony Schatz through a friend. So don't you think it's weird that Keegan Kline was targeting Libby, flees Indiana, and when he returns, he moves in with this girl? Crazy. The guy who's confessing, the guy who confessed to the murders. Let's see here. Here's the murder sheet talking with her. Well, it's not going to be her voice. This is going to be her reading, murder sheet reading the transcript of their interview with her, Allie Conklin. So let's take a listen.
Did Kagan ever talk to you about the Delphi case?
I can remember one time he was just saying how terrible it is and then said something like, isn't it crazy how that guy could be walking around and no one would ever know it's him?
Okay. Did you guys hear that? So Allie's kind of telling the murder sheet some of the things that Keegan Kline told her that stood out to her about the Delphi case. And he told her, don't you think it's weird that that guy could be walking around and nobody would know who he is? Here, let me run that back.
It is. And then said something like, isn't it crazy how that guy could be walking around and no one would ever know it's him? Crazy how that guy could be walking around and no one would ever know it's him? How that guy could be walking around and no one would ever know it's him?
Very interesting that Keegan Kline would say something like that to her. And kind of sick that he would be targeting her. Right? Somebody that's so close to Libby, this person that he targeted was supposed to meet that day, was looking her up after she was dead while looking up the dead bodies from Sandy Hook. Like, how morbid is that shit? All right, let's see what else she had to say.
Do you happen to know anything about where Kagan Kline was on February 13th, 2017?
I didn't know him at that time.
See, she doesn't even realize that she knew him. She knew who he was. Keegan Kline was friends with her entire family. Friends with her, and also the actual friend that introduced Keegan Kline to Libby, he was friends with her family too. And they're the ones that were related to the ski mask incident.
Do you think Kagan could be linked to the Delphi murders?
Definitely. You can't tell me that he was texting one of the girls to meet on the bridge the day before.
She said definitely.
Where the murders occurred. And he knows nothing about it?
Yeah, exactly.
How did you hear about the February 25th, 2017 FBI raid?
About it, saying he got raided for marijuana. He also told me they didn't find anything because he stashed it all in the microwave.
So he told her they didn't find anything. Well, if he had nothing to hide, what is he talking about? Remember, he hid all those phones in the microwave. And then when they didn't find him and released him, he went and deleted all of his Snapchat from the device. The Snapchat info would have revealed what was being said between Anthony Schatz, most likely, and Libby that day. Remember, law enforcement, they've admitted that Anthony Schatz was talking to her the day before, the night of, and the morning of, up until she disappeared off the bridge. But they don't know what they talked about or what was discussed.
Anything because he stashed it all in the microwave.
Crazy. All right, let's get back to the chat. I'm very far behind. Let me zip on down. What's up, Batman? People need to understand if anybody else was part of it, it doesn't change a thing for Richard Allen. I don't think anybody once said that. So I think we all are on the same page with that. What's up, CJK? Frank Meister, what up? Another possibility is that KK Anthony Schatz had a client list with important names, so they can't let him truthfully explain the Delphi crime. Yeah, there might be implications, Anna. You know, some other folks might be implicated. Jerry says no, but he walked past them, so they were aware that he was taller than them, or at least one girl was. No, she said, I went up to his shoulder, is what she said. Now, how would you know that unless you walked over to somebody and said, hey, don't move. Let me stand next to you. Well, looks like I go up to his shoulder. Otherwise, you're just doing your best to remember. One of the girls said, I don't know. I think I ran into the guy at 2:15. Why does she say 2:15? She's a little kid. She doesn't know. All she knows is that she was supposed to be home at 2:30. She was home at 2:30, and it's a 15-minute walk from the trails to get home. So it must have been at 2:15 because it takes me 15 minutes to get home, and that's when I ran into the guy when I was leaving. Some of you out there will be like, oh, well, that's a specific timestamp. You remember the girl? You can't ignore the girl saying 2:15. It's not Richard Allen. Shit like that. It's like you can't get caught up in the weeds. Who's in a band they're playing there this weekend? I'm thinking Whitehall probably. Got that wrong. Name later. Poos, I think Richard Allen ditched all those clothes. No way he's going to go home and do a load of laundry with a coat that large, in my honest opinion. Yeah, he most likely burned it. They most likely burned it all. Probably stripped down. Took off at least the outer layer of clothing that was muddy and bloody. Put it in a bag. Tied the bag, threw the bag in the trunk. He probably didn't even go straight home. If the Klines are involved with Richard Allen, they probably all drove to Peru together. And if Richard Allen didn't go to Peru, he went straight home and burned all that shit. But to me, it would make more sense for them to leave together, talk about what happened, make sure they got rid of all the evidence, focusing in on any loose ends. There's no reason for Richard Allen to have detailed information about people he passed, yet other people remember enough about the dude they passed to help a sketch artist make a suspect sketch. Yeah, but that's how sketches work. Like, they do their best to remember. It's not a photograph. I don't know why we're arguing about that. Like, to say that it's not weird that Richard Allen remembered those girls in detail? Like, what are you talking about, J. Ray? What are you saying? You're saying that's normal? Something I've never seen discussed is what were the girls' plans if there was no BG? Walk back across the bridge. Their time was short because Libby's dad was coming to pick them up. Anna, Libby's dad didn't get there until 3:14. The girls were on the bridge all the way across the bridge at 2:13. So they had an entire hour from that point of the kidnapping to do whatever it was they were planning to do. Go down, look around, come back up and cross the bridge, take some photos. I have a feeling they were just going to go take some photographs. That place is really pretty. I mean, if I was in that area and around there, that's what I would be doing. Honey trap. There you go. Thank you, Miss Doglover. Yeah, the FBI operating a honey trap. They've gotten busted for it a few times on the dark web. FBI in that area was in trouble for covering up sex abuse. See if there are any tentacles with that guy who was abusing young athletes. Yeah, we've touched on that. I think it was Jay Abbott, right? Who was it? The lead FBI agent who kind of dropped the ball. He's responsible for. It was his people that lost the Marathon gas station footage and failed to follow up on Keegan Kline over state lines. They were fired on the anniversary of his arrest 1 year later. It's like they did a independent investigation or something. Because to me, that's symbolic. Why would you release the FBI on the anniversary of the arrest of Keegan Kline, who was supposed to be handled by the FBI when he was in Las Vegas? So who knows what he was up to? But free Richard Allen people want you to believe he was convicted just because law enforcement set him up to close the case, and it was because of corruption across several departments. Why not frame Ron Logan? Why not frame Keegan Kline? Why not frame anybody? I don't know. I guess Richard Allen would be a good patsy if you think about it. Like, hey, this guy was here. Why don't we just swap the bullets for one of his? Nobody would notice. But even with that narrative, he doesn't have an alibi. Nobody came forward to talk. There's no reason for his mom and all the people that he came in contact with that morning not to testify during court, especially his wife. Like, I know you don't have to, but why wouldn't you? Like, the dude just received a 130-year sentence. Like, what the fuck? He said, I went to Peru that morning, hung out with his mom because she had hip surgery. To me, the things that he's remembering about hip surgery, he probably wanted the drugs there. So he's not just drinking beer. It's probably taking pills and drinking beer. That's speculation. But that's what I think. So why didn't his mom say, yeah, he was fine that morning? Why didn't his sister say, oh, well, we didn't think it was weird that he didn't want to eat dinner. He said he wanted to go out and have a good hike. He seemed fine. He said something about watching the stocks. You know, they could have corroborated his story. Like, yeah, he was all worried about some of the investments that he made and he wanted to go unwind on the trails. Other than that, nothing stood out. He was actually being, joking with us. But I guarantee that's not what happened. What happened was he was acting weird, probably trying to get his hands on some of those pills. He didn't have anything to do. Why not go join them for lunch? And why is he driving all the way out to Peru anyway? To not go to lunch with them? I don't know, it just doesn't add up. Samantha Lee says Ron Logan could have easily been set up. Oh, especially when they found out he lied about his alibi? I think, actually, when you're looking at things with a trial in mind, he would have been a nightmare patsy. He had a pretty tight alibi. I think they have his phone right at 2:09, like leaving the area. And then there's a time crunch for him to make it to Lafayette, to the aquarium store. They have an eyewitness there that puts him there and remembers him being there for about an hour. And then he even has a receipt to back that up. So if it wasn't for that time crunch, it would have been perfect because they could prove that he lied about where he was. Oh yeah, that would have been damning in a court of law. Having his cousin up there saying, yep, he called me and said that he needed me to lie for him for an alibi. Specifically the times that the girls were murdered. Yeah, if he didn't have that receipt and if that guy didn't see him at that store, he would have been a perfect patsy. But they're not looking for a patsy. Once again, the Kalenberger case. If Holman wanted a patsy, you have a guy telling you who did it. A bunch of scumbags, a bunch of known criminals. Wouldn't you just use that to arrest the guy? but it's just not enough. These guys don't want patsies, they want the killers. They know, just like I know, that the Klines are involved in this shit. They just can't prove it. You guys go ahead and participate in the poll. We're going to close it down. The question is, do you believe the Klines were directly involved in the Delphi murders? 59% of you say without a doubt. 2% of you say, poor guy. But he still thinks the Klines are involved. This poor guy. My new saying, if it goes poof, it goes poof when there's no proof. Or when there's no proof, it goes poof. However you prefer, whatever you prefer. And 28% of you agreed with that. 11% of you say Sleuth goes on and on about the Delphi case. He won't shut up with that shit. Can't help it, guys. Can't help it. Carter's face in this picture, given up on others involved until someone else is proven to be there. We will see. At best, it's a sick coincidence. Why would Richard Allen ever could cover for the Klines? He is in prison for the rest of his life. He tried to kill himself. If anything, he would rat on them, and his lawyers would have said it was the Klines. Well, that's your opinion, Vegas. Doesn't mean it's a fact. We all have our opinions. Redfoot, what up? KK reminds me of one of those fat green pigs from Angry Birds. Yep. And what's funny is that when you listen to Richard Allen's interviews, he sounds like Kegan Kline. Like they talk alike. They seem like similar people. Like I could totally see those two becoming friends somehow. Oh, you don't? Of course you don't. I'm sure you don't even think Richard Allen was there that day. He was in contact with the girls, we know, but it doesn't prove being related to the murders. What about his confession? What about law enforcement having blinders on this entire time? Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for us to go around giving law enforcement too much credit. You know what I mean? They're just people. We're all human. That's the problem. I think a lot of you give law enforcement, you put them up on this pedestal. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. Don't get it twisted. Well, yeah, that's your opinion as well, CJK. You don't know that. Maybe he never planned to expose himself. Maybe he planned to set them up to be killed. I mean, what are you talking about? Thinks he isn't the only one. Batman, you are, but every other you are. I don't know what you mean. But every other channel thinks he isn't the only one. Then why is he in jail? I don't know what you mean. All they wanted with Richard Allen was to prove he's the bridge guy. If he's the bridge guy, he's the kidnapper. If he's the kidnapper, he's guilty of murder. Because if it wasn't for the kidnapping, the girls would still be alive, regardless of who was involved or not. Law enforcement didn't tell us what happened. They told us that Richard Allen confessed and kind of alluded to what happened. Doesn't mean that's what happened. They don't know what happened. All they know is that Richard Allen is the bridge guy. And they proved that in a court of law. If he's the bridge guy, guess what? He's a killer. No matter how you slice it. What's up, Cyber Warrior? Where did he stash the box cutter till the next day when he said he threw it away in the CVS dumpster? Good question. It is not explained, nor is there a good theory about why KK was allowed to run loose for 3 years about law enforcement knew about Anthony Shots. Covering up for important Anthony Shot clients makes as much sense as anything. Yeah, and I don't know if Indiana could track Kagan Klein over those state lines. That would have to be something for the FBI. J-Ray says, so if the female witness was doing her best to remember who she saw, why is it strange that what are you talking about? That's the whole point. The female witness wasn't doing her best. She was trying to do her best to remember. Try to keep up, J-Ray. Trying to remember. It was Richard Allen who was trying to keep great detail. That's why he was able to remember. Come on now. Nixon, I think KK gave partial truths, just like every criminal. Yep. Psychopaths do that too. While excluding a lot of it, I tend to think he may have met up with Richard Allen at the Marathon gas station before or after the fact. Yeah, at least Kagan Klein. I don't know about his father, but I don't know why he would say that during his confession if it wasn't true. Charlotte, surely Delphi has cameras on the streets so we could see the cars, etc. And if the girls were scared, why didn't Libby say to Abby, hurry, let's go and run away? I believe that was the first time she was ever on the bridge, Charlotte. She was scared out of her mind. I don't think she wanted to be there. So Libby's been on that bridge, crossed that bridge a few times. It's my understanding that would have been Abby's first time. That's why it took them so long. Remember, they took the first photo at 2:05, 2:07, and then they're kidnapped at 2:13. Really, it only takes anywhere between 3 and 6 minutes to cross that bridge, depending on age and athleticism, I guess. Christine, didn't Libby tell a friend she was going to meet a 19-year-old guy? No, she said that she was being harassed by a 19-year-old guy. Oh, sorry. And Keegan Klein was 19 years old at the time. The group of girl witnesses claimed the man they saw seemed angry, didn't speak, etc. If correct, they had reason to take a second look and remember. And really, that's all they remembered. They got everything else wrong. But that's also why it's so important, and what Libby did by getting that video of that man allowed the witnesses to verify who they saw. So Libby did solve her own case. It was that piece of the puzzle that ties it all together. Richard Allen saying, hey, I saw these girls, and the way he was able to explain what he saw in great detail. And then the girls saying who they saw, and who they saw was the bridge guy. And then also the ability to show the timestamp on it. Like it just fits perfectly with him. Like he's the bridge guy. No matter how you spin it, there's no escaping from that. What's going on, brown-eyed girl? It was just a quiet, beautiful place to go and take pictures and hide away from the world. It was peaceful before this. Yep. I mean, they were all there taking photographs. They were happy, smiles on their face. I mean, that place is beautiful. Now it just stigmatized. Taking sides and rooting for the team serves no purpose at this time. I think there's a bigger story. I don't know who did what. Only looking honestly at every detail might reveal truth. I mean, I think if we keep... The way I look at it is it's there. The connection between Richard Allen and Klines, it's there somewhere. Just because we haven't found it, just because they haven't found it, doesn't mean it does not exist. Right? And it takes moving the ego out of the way, right? Get the ego out of the way. Right? Most people think, well, if we didn't find it and all this looking that I've done and we didn't find it, it doesn't exist. For me, it means I need to look harder. I don't just say, oh, well, I'm giving up. Remember, we don't know why Abby and Libby were killed. And if we don't know why, and we don't know what was inspiring Richard Allen to do the things he does or did, how do we protect our own family from it? We don't know what motivated him. Everybody says, oh, well, it was just a coincidence. You know, we have a crazy guy and it was a spur of the moment thing. Opportunistic killer, opportunistic lone wolf. Okay, well, why does this lone wolf appear to be stalking a group of friends on Snapchat? Why do you have somebody named Keegan Kline creating an Anthony Shots account that's communicating with the girls and trying to lure them to the bridge just a block away from where Richard Allen was working at a CVS and living most of his life, not to mention that? Yeah, I thought that was strange too. Samantha says, it's so strange to me that Richard Allen said it was such a warm day and then immediately says, I went home to get a coat. Make that make sense. Laugh out loud. Yeah, and think about it. If he left early in the morning, he's already wearing a jacket. Right? He said, my wife went to work, so I went to go see my mom. So we know that he took the black car because he's traveling a long distance. He's going to save on gas money. It makes sense. She worked at 8. So he probably showed up in Peru around 8. Think about how cold it was that morning. So if he said something like, I went home to switch jackets, as if maybe he was wearing something a little more heavy, which is hard to believe because that's a pretty heavy jacket. I think that would suffice for an unusually warm day. We having discussed stresses in Richard Allen's life in 2017, injury and death of brother-in-law, marriage of daughter, money issues. Now we also hear his mom had hip surgery. Yep. And also he was very worried about his investments. Remember, he's keeping track of a stock ticker. To me, what he's really saying is that he was stressed out. Money issues. His daughter just got accepted into ball. His brother passed away. She recently got engaged, and the mom had hip surgery. That sounds like money, 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 money. You know, sounds like a list of things that you have a savings account for. Remember, Richard Allen told his wife he never walked on the bridge that day. Yeah, remember she said that? You told me you never went on the bridge. And he stopped talking and kind of changed characters. Says, I love you. Like basically like I'm screwed. Like you've been in there telling them these things. Like I'm screwed because of you. But I still love you. Like, do you realize what you did to me? But I love you. And she truly seemed devastated. Batman says, did they confirm that Ron Logan did, in fact, have a tropical fish tank? I believe so. I vaguely remember maybe his girlfriend talking about it, saying that he was like obsessed with his fish. But don't quote me on that. And it says the Delphi case draws a large audience for this channel. Well, we started with the Delphi case. We've invested a lot of time and effort into understanding the case. I really don't think there's anybody on YouTube that knows more about the Delphi case than I do. And I think that's hands down. And I'm not talking about conspiracies or rumors, even though I know all of those too. I'm talking about factual information. Do I get some things wrong? Usually, when I don't know something, I'll tell you, don't quote me on that. And then it usually just turns out that if it's not right, that it'll come to me later anyway, and then I'll know the right answer. Sees through said, I find it hard to believe Rick does not at least know Tony Klein, both in Peru, both known to frequent bars. It ain't a huge place. Yeah, they according to Vito, he says they tried. They went through all of Richard Allen's devices. They went back through all of the information on Keegan Klein's devices. They interviewed people from their both of their pasts, and nobody can figure it out. But in my opinion, they were younger and reacquainted later while Richard Allen was going through all of his issues. I think that, well, remember Richard Allen said something about cheating on his wife. I'm not going to cheat on my wife anymore. I feel like maybe that's what was going on. He was out with them. He was out with the Klines trying to pick up girls, right? My wife is distancing herself from me. She's very upset about what happened to her brother. She's been drinking a lot, whatever. She's creating distance between us, is what Rick might have said to them. Well, I'll take you out. Well, he strikes out, comes home with them, and Keegan Klein says, well, since you struck out at the bar, check this out. And then that's when it all started. No bullet was swapped. She's asked, and he's all, I can't explain, but I know I didn't do this. You don't have to say anything. I already know I didn't do it. Yeah, I know I didn't do this. Like he's kind of grooming her, right, on what to say. You know me. You know I couldn't do this. And then he got real cocky. Let's go to Web of Deceit Untangled. I think they are both not intelligent, and that is why they speak similar. Yeah, it could be the accent too. Yeah, that's a good point, Mandy. Richard Allen saying nobody else had anything to do with this. Could have been his way of protecting others. And I don't think he wants to confess. If he confesses, his wife will divorce him and stop talking to him. So he's like caught between a rock and a hard place. If I confess and tell the truth, there might be more arrests made, more lives ruined, but then real justice can be served, and I can get this off of my chest and begin to truly seek forgiveness. But then on the other side of that coin, he will lose contact with his wife, the person that he's apparently has a dependent personality disorder and some kind of weird attachment to. So that's all he cares about. He needs his phone call. He needs his family updates. He needs somebody to relay information about his daughter, future grandkids. If he confesses, that all goes away. Locals have said no one crossed the bridge if others were already crossing. Etiquette or safety. So if BG crossed while the girls were, it would be a cause of alarm. Yeah, because in my opinion, if you're on the bridge and somebody's walking towards you, you're going to get anxious. You're going to get because all they really would have to do to harm you is push you off the bridge. So you're going to get paranoid. So I can see why they would develop that common courtesy there. If Richard Allen did confess and talk about others, would they have even let those confessions in court? They'd be hesitant if there were other investigations. I don't know. I just don't see him confessing. I think the only reason Richard Allen has not confessed is because, remember, he tried to early on. He wasn't sick. It was like the second call with his wife. He says, "Hey, I need you to know that I did this. Like, did you tell mom that I did this? His dad there? I want to talk to him. Did he tell you what I said?" And then she kind of told him, like, "Hell no, you didn't do this. You need to stop saying that. That's not what I want. I'm not going to support you in that way because by you confessing, that makes me the woman that married a child killer." So it's not only his confession, it's her confession. And I think it gave her anxiety, that realization. So she panicked. He saw her panicking. And the last thing he wants to do is upset her. So therefore, he knows he's facing life in prison. They can give him 130 years. He'd be lucky if he has 30 years left. So either way, it's a life sentence. He needs her. No reason to confess if others are involved. And unfortunately, there's no evidence that others are involved. But I believe that the Klines may be involved, and so does the entire investigative team. So I'm not alone in this. All right, closing the poll out. Let's see what we got here. Do you believe the Klines were directly involved in the Delphi murder? 60% of you say without a doubt. 27% of you said it goes poof when there's no proof. And that is also true. 10% say sleuth goes on and on and on about the Delphi case. And 2% of you said poor guy. Alan told us why he killed him. He didn't tell us. He told his doctor why he killed him, and he has a million reasons to tell half-truths. Most psychopaths and people with personality disorders do that. They leave out the details that make them look bad. And like I said, if he's motivated, right? We don't know what his motivations are. Yeah, I have all that information ready, but we ran out of time. Maybe we'll touch on the ski mask incident another day. That I don't know, Anna. I don't know if it was a project or not. Yeah, and that makes sense. It doesn't mean it's the full truth, right, CJK? Hey, what's going on, Mark? Good to see you. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here in just a minute. Let's see if I missed anybody. Linda, why wouldn't he let his wife help with the search for the girls? Yeah, that's interesting as well. So he lied, like I wasn't on the bridge. I just went to the trails and went for a walk. I didn't see anything. All right, well, you need to, I need you to tip that in because they're asking for people to come forward, anybody that was out there. Okay, yeah, I'll call it in. I wonder what he said to her to keep her from going out there. Like, oh, I don't want you to get hurt, or that's kind of weird. CJK says, I won't hold my breath waiting for Alan to tell the world what he did. Maybe on his deathbed. Shit, maybe. All right, Mark, we'll see you in the comment section. Shout out to the replay crew. Big thanks to Alex for sponsoring today's live stream and all of you who have supported my channel over the past few years. Thank you so much. Badass, good to see you. All right, I'll see you guys in a few hours. We are going live. And then after that live stream, we're going to members only. We had to reschedule it, but we have it locked in. It's been a lot of activity on my end here, so I do apologize. But we have it locked in today. And then maybe a little bit later tonight, we might even do an open panel. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But either way, if you guys need to reach me for whatever reason, you can always shoot me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out. Consider becoming a member. And if you'd like to support my channel monetarily, you can donate to the Cash App, the Venmo, the Zelle. Purchase merch at sleuthintuition.com. But it is free to hit the like button or to share the content, and it goes a long ways. So big shout out to all of my supporters, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Take care.